Daf Nun Aleph Amud Beis, the new parak. The fifth parak, B'meh Behema. B'meh Behema Yoytze, Uv'meh Ena Yoytze. How can a behema go out on Shabbos? With what can it go out, and with what can it not go out? So there's an Isser on Shabbos not only for a person to do a malacha, but a person cannot even have his animal, his behema cannot do a malacha either. That's also also. It's also also for a behema to do malacha on Shabbos. The source of this Isser, as the Torah says, Leisas malacha ato v'emtecha. It says you and behemtecha. So Rashi seems to be learning, Rashi and Avodah Zarah, is that this is the source for the Isser, not only for mechamer. Mechamer means that you're leading your animal carrying a load. An animal is carrying a load, you're leading the animal, that's mechamer. That is a lav for you. It's also for you to lead your animal carrying a load. But in addition to that, there is a Isser for the behema itself to do a malacha. You have to restrain your animal from doing a malacha. So Rashi seems to be learning that this is also the source for a behema, your behema to do a malacha. Taisus of Anart says, no, that's not the case. That is only for mechamer. But for a malacha, a person is musar on shvisas behemta because it says laman yanuach. You have to rest, you and your animals also have to rest, laman yanuach. In any event, an animal cannot do a malach. However, if it's something that is for the benefit of the animal, or if the animal is carrying something. Now, carrying is a malach. Haitzah is a malach. If the animal carries something from Rishus to Rishus, or Dalet Amos in the Rishus Rabim, it would be a malach. But if the animal is carrying something that it's for its own benefit, for its protection, to guard it, or to be able to have the owner to restrain it and to be able to have the owner to protect it so that it's not run wild and injure itself, that's not called a malach. So we're going to define in the Mishnah is going to define those types of things that an animal is allowed to go out with, is allowed to go in the Rishus Rabim, or from the Rishus Yachad to the Rishus Rabim, or vice versa. What are those things, what are those items that the animal normally has, that those are considered a shmira for the animal, is considered a protection for the animal, and it's not considered a masoi, it's not considered that he's carrying something, it's not a malacha. With what can an animal go out? And what are the things it cannot go out with? A camel can go out with an afser. A camel can go out with a halter. So this is the type of item. Now, some of the things that we're going to listen to the Mishnah, they'll be defined in the Gemara in more detail. An animal, a camel can go out with a halter. It can go out with a rope, and there's a rope that's tied to the animal's mouth, and that's how the owner is able to restrain it and make sure that it doesn't run wild. So that's the type of an item that a gamel normally goes out with. That's used for its protection. Therefore, that is not considered to be a masui, and that's not considered to be carrying. So it has to be the type of item that is strong enough, when it's placed in the right position, that depending on the size and of the animal and the nature of the animal, how wild it is, and how much you need to be able to restrain it. So what's appropriate for the gamal is a halter. That's appropriate given its size and given its nature. That's the type of thing that's appropriate to be able to restrain the gamal, that it doesn't go wild. So the Yotzah gamal ba'afs v'naka b'chait, and a naka can go out with a chaitim. We'll see more what a chaitim is. It's obviously something with the nose, but the more we'll define it more carefully, more clearly. But a naka, which is a type of camel, we're discussing here a female dromedary, and the Gemara will discuss in more detail, more particularly what type of a female dromedary, goes out with a chaitim, which we'll see, the Gemara will define what that is. And luvdikim, there are certain types of donkeys, and we'll see in the Gemara. Well, tell us more exactly, define more exactly what they are. They can go out with a bit, and vesus bashir, and a horse can go out with a collar. They have put a collar around the neck. They tie a rope to the collar. And that's the normal way with a horse. That's the normal way that a horse goes out, and where the owner can restrain the horse. And all animals that normally wear the collar, they can go out with the collar. It's not only the horse. Any animal that's the way it normally goes out, can go out wearing a collar. And the Zayta Halacha, that they go out with the collar, they can be pulled by a collar. But a sign of halacha is, the Mishnah continues, if you have to do hazah, if it became tomei, so it became tomei with the tumas meiz, the way to be matayr it is not only tefillah, but it has to be sprinkled with the waters of the mechatas. It can be sprinkled even if the horse, even the animal is wearing the collar. You don't have to take it off to do the hazah. You can be wearing the collar, and you can do hazah as well. And Tosfos on Nun Beis rather explains that, and we're not concerned that he will inadvertently sprinkle the waters on the animal, because if he did, if he's niskaven lahazis on the kli and he's niskaven on the behema, that would passel the water. So it's telling you a chiddush in the Mishnah. It says that in terms of hazah, he does not have to remove the collar. He can sprinkle it, the mechatas, even where it's wearing it. And he can also do tefillah while they're in their place, while it's around the animal's neck where it's wearing the collar. As long as it's loose, we're not concerned about a chatzitza. The waters can get through and get in. We're not concerned about a chatzitza. It's a kosher tefillah. But these are the types of animals, and these are the appropriate kalim that they use, they're used for the benefit of the animal, that the owner can restrain them. There's a shmirah for the animal. These are not considered to be a masu, it's not considered to be carrying, and they can go out with them on Shabbos. They can go out with them, and as the Mishnah says, with the sus v'shir, they can wear them, and you can even pull the animal with them, and with this collar. Now the Gemara will define in greater detail what are these items that we're discussing. So the first halacha is that the behemoth can go out. It says a gamal can go with an afsa. The second halacha is that a naka can go out with a chaitim. My naka b'chaitim, what does that mean? Omar Rabba Barachana Naksa Chirasa, it means a white Naksa, a white dromedary, Bezamam the Parzala, with a nose ring made out of iron. So because this is a particularly wild kind of animal, with a gamal, a regular camel, it can go out with a halter. A gamal can go out with an afsa, that's sufficient. But this type of white dromedary is wilder. It needs something stronger. They put an iron ring in the nose and attach the rope to that ring, and that you're able to restrain the animal more because it hurts. If it would pull away, it would cause pain. So therefore, you're able to control this type of wild animal better with this type of device, with this type of chayta. The luvdikim beprumbia, and the next on the list is the luvdikim. You can go out wearing a bit, a prumbia. Omar Rav Huna says, Chamra luba bepagi the parsala. It means a luvdikim is, we're talking about a white donkey with an iron bit. So that was put in the mouth, and that's what's inserted in the mouth, and that's what was needed to control these types of donkeys, which are stronger, they're wilder, it's harder to restrain. Therefore, they had to put this type of a bit into the donkey, an iron bit, and that's how they restrained it. So, as on a side note, we're talking about these luvdikim. Levi sent money to Bechuzor, to that place. That's where they had these types of donkeys, they had these luvdikim. He sent money there, and for them to send him this donkey. He wanted to buy it, then he sent the money there to them to send him the donkey. Shadu tsaru shadu le sari. But instead, they wrapped up the money, they sent it back to him, and they sent it back to him with barley. What do they mean to indicate? They mean to say, Lamema, the nigri, the chamra, sorry. They meant to indicate with, if you want a strong donkey, he wanted to buy these luvdikim because they're strong, very strong. So if you want a strong donkey, they didn't want to sell it to him because it was very far away. It was a long journey. It would take a long time to get there, and until he got there, the donkey would already be worn out. So they sent back the money with barley, indicating that if you want a strong donkey, feed it barley, and the donkeys that you have in your region, you feed it properly, they'll also be strong, and it's better than buying the luvdikim from here and transporting them over to you. They switched the cases in front of Rebbe. What would be if they switched it around? What if they switched it around and they said, the Mishnah says a gamal can go out with a halter. And it says that the luvdikim, and it says that the luvdikim goes out with a venaka, goes out with a chaitim. They switched it around and they said, what about a camel going out with a chaitim and with a naka going out with a halter, going out with an officer? What about switching it around? Can you switch it, and is that also permitted? Is that also considered for the protection of the animal, and it would be mutter? So Rebbe answered, Naka b'afser loiti boiloch, with a naka, with an afser, that's not a shayla. That's not a shayla, came to the loy mintra bay. It's not going to protect it properly. Also, then it's considered carrying. Why is it that it goes out with something stronger? Why do we say that the nak has a chaitim? Because the nak is strong, it's aggressive, it needs something better. It needs something that will restrain it more. And that's why it goes out with him. So therefore, the halter will not provide sufficient shmira, so that if it doesn't protect it enough, the only basis for allowing the animal to go out with wearing these things or carrying these things is because it's a shmira for the animal. If it doesn't do the job, if it's not sufficient, then it's a masoi, so that's also, so that's not a shayla. Kiti boilach, what is a shayla? Gamal bechotem mai. For the camel to go out with a chotem, to go out with a nose ring, that's a shayla. Now it doesn't need it. It can go out with the halter. It doesn't need this level of shmira, but seif kol seif, it will restrain the animal. It's perhaps overkill, but it will restrain the animal. So is that considered a shmira? Is that considered for the benefit of the animal? Or is it considered excessive, and therefore it would be considered a masi? That's the shayla. So do we say, came the sagaleva afser, do we say since it's sufficient with an afser masui, who this would be considered to be a masui, or dilman, itirus yasera lo yamin a masui? Or perhaps we say, yes, it's excessive, but nevertheless, it's not a masui because it does restrain the animal. That's the shayla. He said, Kach Amar Abba, he said that his father said, Arba behemus yaitzais ba'afser. There are 4 animals that go out with the afser, with the halter. What are they? Asus, pered, the horse, the mule, va'gamal, va'chamor, and the camel and the donkey. So it says these 4. Limute mai, what is this coming to exclude? So he's saying these 4, he must be indicating, he's dafka saying this, and something else cannot go out. Another type of animal cannot go out in a certain way. Limute mai must be, isn't it, to tell me that these animals go out with an afser. These animals can go out with an afser. A gamal can go out with an afser, but a gamal cannot go out with a chaitim. So cannot we be medayik that that's what he meant to say? The gamal can go out with a halter, but it can't go out with a chaitim. He says no. Rabbi says it's not a raya. Loy limute naka ba'afser. What he meant to say is these are the 4 animals that can go with an afser, but a naka cannot go out with an afser. That's what he meant to say. he didn't mean to indicate anything about a chaitim. He meant to say these are the 4 animals that are considered sufficiently properly protected with a halter, with an afser. However, anaka is wild and is more aggressive. That, no, cannot go out with an afser because it doesn't protect it properly. That would be considered a masui. So you have no right from here. The masnisa tana. So they learned in the Brisa, Luvdekim v'gamol yotzim ba'afsar. They learned out that Luvdekim, these types of donkeys, and a gamol, they could go out with an afsar. They could go out with an afsar. So some learned that this happens to be a zaytika point. We were discussing about the 4 behemoths that are yotzim ba'afsar, and it mentions over here also Luvdekim also can go out with an afsar. That wasn't mentioned in the previous list, but the way the Sfas Emes is learning it is, he meant to say to be doicha that Rebbe's pshat. Because Rebbe said, no, the reason he mentioned these 4 is not to be memayet a gamal b'chaitem, is to tell me it's to be memayet a nakabafsa. He meant to say that these 4 are dafka, this list is all inclusive, and only these 4 can go out with an afser, but not a naka. However, we see, you see, it mentioned Luvdekim in the Brisa, which it did not mention, what was not mentioned before, that Rav Yossi did not mention. So you see, the list of Rav Yossi is not all-inclusive and is telling you only these 4 can go out with an afser, because you see that Luvdekim can also go out with an afser. So, l'cher, what it means to say, it's more indicative of the diuk that Rav Shmuel wanted to say, that it wanted to be mamayet a gamal b'chaitim. So the Gemara says whether you can go out with something excessive. Is this considered a masoi? Or do we say it's netirusi yaser? It's a masoi or not a masoi? Let us say that kitanoi. Let's say that this is really this machlekes tanoim, because it says ein, and we learned in the Brisa, ein chaya yetze besugar, a chaya, a wild animal, cannot go out with a collar made out of rope. He says it can go out with a collar and anything that restrains it. So what's the case over here? If it's talking to a large animal, a large wild animal, is a collar out of rope, is that going to be enough to restrain something like a bear? So perhaps you'll say we're talking about a very small chaya. Misagale suger, milay sagale suger, is a suger not enough? Of course it is. So what would be? Certainly would be. So what would be the machlekes over here? So why would the Tanakhama say you can't? It certainly would be something that would be appropriate and be a shmir. Elalav, what is the case that we're talking? Must be elalav chatuli kabina. It must be a type of an animal like a cat, a type of chaya like a cat, which is very small. So what's machlekes? Tanakama savar kaven the sagale b'misna ba'alma. He says since it's just a cat, it would be enough for the cat to have just a misna ba'alma, an ordinary rope. Why do you need this collar over here? So since it would be sufficient to have something less, masohu, this would be considered to be a masohu, a burden that would be considered carrying. And he holds that netirusi yasera is considered a masohu. Chananya savar kol netirusi yasera lo imreinu masohu. Chananya holds that yes, it's more than is needed, but nevertheless, it does the job. It restrains it. It's not considered a masui. So the chayr, you see that where we said whether or not we say that Tirusi Yasir is a masui, the chayr, it's a machlokes Tanakama and Chananya. Amar Rav Huna bar Chia, Amar Shmuel, halacha ke Chananya. He said that's the halacha, and the Tirusi Yasir we do not say it's a masui. Levi Breder of Huna bar Chia v'Rava bar Rav Huna havika Oslo b'Urcha. They were traveling on the road. Kat me'achama the Levi l'chama the Rav Huna, and his donkey went ahead. So the donkey of Levi went ahead of his. Chalish died to the Rav Huna, and so he had chalishas adas that perhaps this was a sign of disrespect, and that he was going ahead of him. He was moving ahead of him. Actually, it's interesting because when we learned the Gemara in Brachas, not that long ago, we learned that the Gemara says over there at the Ein that we don't give derech eretz and mekadmem ba'urcha. We don't give derech eretz in travel when we travel. So there's really no problem in traveling of going one ahead of the other. So, but Tosfos qualifies that. It depends on the situation, on the circumstances. Actually brings down this Gemara over here as a kasha, because we see over here that he had chalishas hadas, that he went ahead of him. So I in the Tosfos and Brachas that he is machalik in the cases over there. Al kol panim, he was afraid that he said over here he had chalishas hadas. So emalei milsa, he said emalei milsa ki hechi. Let me say something. Let me say something to try to appease him, to show him a sign of respect that he shouldn't have chalishas hadas. Amrle, he said, Chamor shasaka v'roim kigoin. He said, a donkey that has such a bad nature, a wild nature like this, meaning to indicate, he wanted to indicate that he didn't do this intentionally. This was not done intentionally. This was the chamor that is wild. So a chamor that has this type of nature, mahu lotzeis b'prum b'Shabbos. This is not a regular chamor. So it's wild. Can you go out with this, with a prumbi on Shabbos? Is it now, can we do something extra for this type of a chamor? Amr Lei said, Hachi Amar Vuch Mishmei Shmuel, your father said, Shmuel, so even if it wouldn't be, meaning even if it wouldn't be a wild one, even if it would be extra, it would still be mutter. Because we don't say that Tirusa Yisera is a malsui. So therefore, it's in any event, it would be mutter.